All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to get into something that is absolutely crucial for anyone working in tech: nouns and quantity expressions. Honestly, getting this stuff right can be the difference between your work sounding a little clunky and truly professional. It matters in your code comments, your reports, all of it. So let me just ask you this straight up. Is your technical writing as clear as it could be? You know, even tiny grammar mistakes can accidentally make you seem less credible. And when you're trying to explain a complex system or a critical bug, clarity is literally everything. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Okay, let's look at a perfect example of what I'm talking about. On the left, you've got a mistake that is super common. On the right, that's the clean, professional version. See the difference? It's a small tweak, but it completely changes how your writing comes across. This is exactly the kind of polish we're aiming for. So here's our plan for today. We're going to start with why nouns are so important in the tech world. Then we'll cover the essentials, get into the really tricky part, count versus non-count nouns, and then see how that affects articles and quantity. We'll wrap up with some advanced tips and a look at the most common mistakes so you can avoid them. First things first, why are we spending so much time on nouns? Well, because in the world of technology, nouns are basically the building blocks for everything you say and write. They name every single part of your job: the user, the server, the data, the software, all of it. And trust me, this is not just some abstract grammar lesson. You are using these concepts every single day. Whether you're writing software documentation, a project report, describing a bug, or putting together a user guide, using nouns correctly means your team and your clients will know exactly what you mean right away. All right, let's get our hands on the first set of tools. We're talking plurals, possessives, and modifiers. Think of these as the absolute fundamentals that everything else is built on. So, the basic rule? Super simple. For most nouns, like file or server, you just slap an S on the end. For words that end with a sound like sh or ch, like crash, you add es. Easy enough, right? So you'd say, the script fixes multiple crashes. Now this is where it gets a little more interesting. These are the irregular plurals, a lot of them borrowed from other languages, that you see all the time in tech. When you say the report uses several criteria instead of criterions, it just shows a whole other level of English proficiency. It's a small detail that really stands out. Next up, possessives. These little guys show ownership or some kind of relationship. For a single noun, you just add an apostrophe s, like in the client's dashboard. If you have a plural noun that already ends in s, like developers, the apostrophe just goes on the end. Simple as that. Oh, this slide. This one points out a mistake I see all the time. When you use one noun to describe another one, kind of like an adjective, that first noun almost always stays singular. So it's a user account, not a user's account. It's a server room, not a server's room. The key thing to remember is keep that first noun singular. Okay, we've arrived at the main event. Seriously, understanding the difference between count and non-count nouns is probably the single most important thing you can do to avoid the most common errors in technical English. Let's get into it. This breaks it down perfectly. Count nouns are just things you can, well, count. One file, two files, a bug, many bugs. But non-count nouns are different. They're concepts or materials that you can't really count as separate items, like information or software. You just can't say you have 3 softwares. It doesn't work that way. And here they are, the heavy hitters you'll use constantly. Go ahead and just burn these into your memory. These words are never, ever plural. You never need informations. A company doesn't buy new equipments, it buys new equipment. Getting these right is a huge leap forward, I promise. So now that we've really gotten the hang of count versus non-count nouns, let's put that knowledge to work. This is where we can start using articles and quantity words correctly, and that's when your writing starts to get really precise. Think of this as your quick guide. You use a or an when you're talking about a single thing for the first time, like I found a bug. You use the when everybody involved knows which specific thing you mean. The server is down. And for really general statements, you often don't use an article at all. Software is important. In this chart, this is your new best friend. It's basically a cheat sheet. You use words like many or several for things you can count, like users. You use much for things you can't, like traffic. And then you have these flexible words like some or a lot of that happily work with both. It's a pretty simple system once you see it all laid out. Okay, ready to level up your skills? These next few points are all about the subtle stuff, the little details that will make your English sound much more natural and, frankly, more sophisticated. This one is so important. The difference between a few and few is all about attitude. A few and a little are positive. They mean you have some. We have a little time left is great. We can get something done. But few and little on their own, they're negative. We have little useful information, means you have a problem, because you have almost none.
So, what's the deal with of? The rule is actually really simple. You use of when you're talking about a specific defined group, like some of the files on this server. But if you're just speaking generally, you leave the of out. You just say, we need some files.
And finally, let's talk about words like each and every. So each user is singular, right? Each user has an account. The really tricky one is one of. Even though you say one of the files, the real subject is one. So the verb has to be singular. One of the files is corrupted. Just remember, the verb has to agree with one, not with files.
All right, let's bring it all home with a quick, rapid-fire review of the most common mistakes. Seeing these side by side like this is a great way to make sure the correct patterns really stick in your head.
Mistake number 1, and it's a big one, adding an S to non-count nouns. Remember, it's never informations. It's information or some information. It's never equipments. It's equipment or maybe pieces of equipment.
And mistake number 2, using a or an with non-count nouns. You can't get an advice, you can get some advice. And you don't install a software, you install some software. Or if you need to count it, you could say a software program. And there you have it. Mastering these rules about nouns isn't just about grammar. It's really about empowering yourself to communicate with more clarity, more precision, and more professionalism. It makes sure that your brilliant technical ideas get the respect they deserve. So my question to you is, what's one rule from today that you can start using in your writing right now?